Hi everyone, my name is Dawn McCaw, and I am the CRC, the Career Resource Center liaison to the School of Fine and Performing Arts. And this is the first episode of our Arts Chat for the semester. And I'm super excited to bring on our guest today, our alumni guest. And I'm going to do that right now. 1 second while I and we are Missy Graff Ballone, and she's very accomplished, has many different titles, so I'm going to introduce her in a moment. Good morning, Missy. How are you? Good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, of course.
I'm going to just give you a brief intro, and then you can fill in what I've missed. So apologize in advance. So Missy is the founder of Wellness for Makers, which is her own company. And she's an author of a new publication, and that is Wellness for Makers, a movement guide for artists. In addition, she is an artist. She graduated from SUNY New Paltz MFA program in 2013. She's also a public speaker, a movement educator, a licensed massage therapist, and certified in yoga, a registered yoga instructor, teacher. So thank you again for taking time out of your day to talk with us. And so if you want to add anything to that, what I just mentioned, or else just start out and tell us a little bit about maybe the book, the Wellness Guide, Wellness for Makers, a movement guide for artists.
Sure. So I started Wellness for Makers years ago after graduating from SUNY New Paltz. I realized that there was a gap in the education system. You know, a lot of us in the studios were up very late. We weren't really taking care of our bodies, and we were ultimately in a lot of pain. And so afterwards, I was talking to a lot of artists at Peters Valley School of Craft, and we were talking about the aches and pains we were experiencing in our hands as a result of making. And, you know, a lot of makers were like, we're just going to end up with a repetitive strain injury with arthritis, so we might as well just deal with it. And I felt a need to kind of bridge that gap. So fast forward to the pandemic, I had been creating more and more resources, online courses, speaking at workshops, a podcast, all of these things. And then when the pandemic hit, a lot of the in-person activities kind of came to a halt, and we had to do a lot online. A publisher, Schiffer Publishing, had reached out in the beginning of the pandemic and said, hey, do you want to write a book about wellness for makers? So that's what I did. I spent 2 years putting it together, working with an amazing photographer and making sure that all the movements were clear and very accessible to artists everywhere. So this is the book. I have it here. It is beautiful. It's a hardcover. It just got released in August, and it has photos and information to help you build a sustainable studio practice to create more longevity in your hands and body, and hopefully reduce your risk of developing a repetitive strain injury over time.
That's great. I mean, just from working in an office, sometimes I'm older, like pains in my hands. So I can only imagine if you're creating in a studio that you definitely need to be able to utilize your tools.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, the book is great for anyone, really. I gear it towards artists because that's my background and that's, you know, the perspective that I come from. But it's really for anyone who sits for long periods of time, it's great. If you stand for long periods of time, it's great. If you work with your hands repetitively, it's fantastic. So it's really a wonderful resource.
Great. And congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Okay, so can you share a little bit of your career journey so far? It can include internships or residencies or any really work experience, but just kind of where your career journey kind of started and where you are.
Sure. So when I was in undergrad, I had done an assistantship at Peters Valley School of Craft. And then when I went through SUNY New Paltz and everything afterwards, I was able to become an instructor at some of these craft centers like Peters Valley. I worked at Gallery Loop, which is a contemporary art jewelry gallery, for about 10 years throughout undergrad and then after grad. And, getting a range of perspectives. I didn't know where I would end up, whether it was in the gallery space or if I was going to end up just creating, which I, have had a studio practice of my own. For years, I rented a studio space and collaborated with so many artists and was able to have my work shown, in different galleries, nationally and internationally, which was wonderful, doing residencies, doing the hustle that any creative can really do. And along that road, I started to realize that my background in massage therapy, which I forgot to mention, but I went to school for massage therapy before going to school for fine art. So before undergrad, I went to massage therapy school, mainly because I, grew up with a single mom. I needed a backup plan if, fine art didn't, go as well as I had hoped. I wanted something that I would be able to work my way through school doing that made a bit more than some of the other jobs that I would have access to. So that is what I did. I worked as a massage therapist, but I had always really found that massage therapy was part of like my story. In graduate school, at SUNY, I would talk and introduce myself to different critics and artists that came in, and I'd say, well, I'm also a massage therapist. And one of the artists that came to visit us said, but why is that important for you to share with me? Like, why do I need to know that? And that, kind of got me thinking. And then one of the critics said, I'd like for you to draw your perspective of the body as a jeweler and your perspective of the body as a massage therapist and think about how those worlds combine. And that was a really important moment for me in my making career and in my career in general, because then I started thinking about these two worlds coming together rather than being separate. And all of my artwork from that point forward became specifically about the body and my perspective of the body as a massage therapist, as well as a jeweler. So all of the work became very tactile. You were able to stretch it and interact with it in different ways rather than just being for wear. And, when I went to SUNY New Paltz, my jewelry was more traditional. It wasn't, I didn't really have like the concept behind it, and I felt like I had struggled with that before getting to SUNY New Paltz. And so that was a really big way of bringing myself into the work.
That's interesting. Yeah. You mentioned being at the Peters Valley
School of Craft. Yes.
School of Craft. And when you have been in, different residencies or different experiences, how would you say, like, you thought of it, like, oh, that would be interesting, and then did you apply, or like, how did you get involved?
Yeah. So for me, I wasn't afraid of getting a no. So in undergraduate school, I had a wonderful guest artist come and speak, and she had shared, it was Sharon Loden. She shared that she applied to be in the Whitney like 11 or 12 times before she got in, and that we can't take rejection letters to heart, and every time you get one you should apply to 10 more opportunities. So I took that conversation pretty seriously, and anytime I applied to something, rather than just applying to one and having all my eggs in one basket and hoping for it, and being super discouraged when it didn't get there, I just applied to like 10 things and hoped that one would, work out. And that's the way it would go, and yeah, you get some rejections along the way, of course, but there are absolutely the yeses that you have to hold on to. So I also I kept in touch with the people that I met along the way. So I think that's really important, whether it's your professors or your internships, the mentors that you meet along the way, keeping those connections, whether it's just a hello and an email, a checking in, allowing you to know what I've been working on. I was very adamant about keeping those relationships alive, and that was really helpful. So when all of my friends, like, it seemed like they had plans in the summer after grad school or whatever, and I wasn't sure what I was doing, it's like you kind of start reaching out to some of those people, and then, before you know it, you have more opportunities. So, I mentioned that in undergrad, I had done an assistantship at Peters Valley School of Craft. So, then they invited me back to teach. And then eventually, after teaching for a few years and creating Wellness for Makers and staying involved in their community, I was invited to be a part of the board. So I was on the executive board at Peters Valley School of Craft for about 3 years. And it was an incredible opportunity. The only reason I left is because I had moved out of state, and it was hard because it was before the pandemic to, stay all connected, and being connected was a big part. But it was a wonderful experience. And I really recommend for anyone who's, especially if you're interested in working with a nonprofit eventually, if you have this opportunity to be a part, you can be a part of the bigger voice of the organization and helping it move forward in a positive way.
Great. Thank you so much. So would you be able to share some of the skills that you've developed along the way and how they're helpful to your work?
Sure. So skills, there's a lot of different things that I didn't think I was, going to learn that were necessary or had to learn. But one thing, that I did learn, especially at SUNY New Paltz, if you, consider all of this, is I really took into consideration, like, how to brand all of my stuff together, like how to, how to make things cohesive. So I might not be making the same type of work right now, but I'm thinking critically in the way that I create what I do, so every step of the way I was taught to, like, really think critically. Why am I doing this? Questioning every choice. And so I've really held that into the branding of Wellness for Makers and creating it so that way everything is cohesive with one another, whether it's the social media, the book, all of these things. And, along the way with creating this brand of Wellness for Makers and then a book along with it is, I had to learn a lot of technical things that I didn't really, anticipate, but it comes very natural in ways to me. So that was very helpful. I really enjoy working on different systems and things on the computer and doing, seeing, the website come to life and all of those things. And so that's been helpful.
That's great. That's great. I know sometimes students don't realize, like, everybody continuously builds skills. It doesn't just end. Like, when you get out of school, you can, you keep building that. If you could go back and speak to your younger self, what advice might you give in terms of school or career or getting involved?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that this goes for, especially art majors, but anyone who is thinking of being a creative or an entrepreneur or whatever. But I think that having a good idea of like how to price your work and how to price what your offerings are is really important. And one way to do that, I know for artists, it's a challenge to figure out, how do I price my work? How do I present this to the world and be able to make a living, be able to make a profit off of having a creative career? And that is really a challenge. So asking, not being afraid to reach out to, again, your mentors and asking them these hard questions, reaching out to people that you find interesting and seeing who will offer you those types of, that type of information. Reading books about how to make a living as an artist is really important, because being able to learn from people who are already doing it is very helpful. But it is a challenging thing, you know, like you might have to juggle a lot of different jobs or opportunities in order to get it going, and that's okay, you know, if you that's the type of balance you want. But I think that being able to understand how to promote yourself is really important, especially from working in the gallery. You know, in galleries, I would see artists come and not really know how to present themselves to the gallery, and just like hope that they'll like look at their work, and it's like that's not how this is going down, you know. So kind of learning how to market yourself is really important. And I think that sometimes, you know, with the arts, we're not always thinking of that aspect because it can take away from the making. But it's really important, whether it's how you photograph your work, how you price it, how you promote it, is all part of it. So definitely keeping that in consideration when moving forward is important.
Yeah, that's such a great point because, and even when I'm working with students, it's about kind of the branding of the product yourself. It all has to come together. And a lot of times people in all different career areas are experts in their craft or, you know, whatever they do, but that marketing, that branding is not something that they think of and how important that is. So yeah,
Right.
that's
And like making your resume look good, you know. I remember one of the things that was shared with me was, you know, I want everything to be so cohesive that even your paperclip holding it all together matches your brand, like matches your vibe that you're presenting to this organization or this business. You know, things to think about. I like someone mentioned in the comments that they love the book, I'd rather be in the studio for artist business strategies. And that's awesome. I have not read that book, but I'm looking forward to checking it out myself. There's definitely a lot of resources out there to, you know, to kind of build us up, help us learn how to put together our resumes, our artist statements, all of the things. And then just, you know, reading all that is really important. So go ahead.
yeah, no, thank you. Um, so I'm just wondering, is there anything that you'd like to share with current art students, maybe in, I don't know, getting involved on campus or things that they can do right now? Because we're talking about marketing, maybe social media for a club or.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, I think being involved in general, you know, is a wonderful thing. When I was at SUNY New Paltz, I was involved in the Student Art Alliance, and it was a wonderful experience for me. And you know, before SUNY New Paltz, when I was an undergrad, we didn't have a club in the metal studio, and we wanted one. So we just created one, you know, we started, you know, meeting every week, and we built this awesome community of metalsmiths, which was and artists. And you know, honestly, the other art majors were a little jealous. They wanted to get in on the fun, and you know, we built community around that, which was really nice because it's your network. And later on, you know, you can connect with these people and reach out either for collaborations, job opportunities, all of the things. At SUNY, like I mentioned, I was on the Student Art Alliance, which was a wonderful experience. My role was to invite the guest speakers that came to the school and spoke for the community, for the artists and everything. And it was awesome. It was very helpful because it helped me learn how to reach out to artists in a way that would get them to respond, one, and two, you know, want to come, how to, you know, explain to them the budget that we have and what we have to offer them for coming, for travel, for their time, all the things, what we're expecting of them, how long they're going to be here, you know, and if I don't hear back, how long before I email and follow up, and how many times should I follow up? You know, we ended up with some really amazing, you know, artists and critics while I was there, and it was a wonderful experience. And then because I was the one emailing back and forth, I was then the one that got to meet the, I mean, all of us really got to meet them, but you had a different type of connection, which was really nice. So I definitely do encourage artists, if, to get involved with the community, because then that is something else. If you make one of those good connections with one of those artists, maybe they want you as an assistant, maybe they, maybe you'll work at their museum. I don't know, whatever it is, you can,
Yeah, you never know what great things come from those
Yeah,
connections.
absolutely.
Also, I think we spoke about this yesterday, but those skills in event coordination and just the professional skills that you built and honed during that time are things you don't always learn in the classroom, but are just what you do. That's super important if anybody wants
Yes,
to.
and it specifically helped me a lot because, it helped kind of remove the fear of reaching out to someone like, oh, I'm just like, who am I to reach out to them? And it's like, if students can reach out to, these professionals, then why not? When you graduate, why can't you reach out to them? So for me, I started the Wellness for Makers podcast. If anyone is an artist here or, just wants to listen, it's a really great resource, a free resource where you can learn from myself, other artists, other wellness practitioners, movement practitioners who I respect, who have a great, perspective to share. There's some cautionary tales in there. It's a really great thing. And, I've reached out to so many wonderful people, TED Talk speakers and, amazing organizations and businesses and brands. And someone I was talking to said, oh, it's really interesting that you're not afraid to reach out to these people. And I'm like, why would I be afraid to reach out to them? They're just another person. But I think if maybe I didn't have these other experiences early on, I might be afraid. But to me, I'm like, what's the worst that happens? They don't respond, Okay,
Right.
I'm moving on. I have a list of people to reach out to, So if you want to make your podcast where you interview people, you have an idea for like an artist podcast or a business podcast or whatever it is, make your list of people to reach out to, write down their info, write down their names, and then mark when you reached out to them, if you should follow up, if they were a no-go, no problem. But most people are interested in connecting, and it's awesome. Even for Wellness for Makers, when it first started out, I didn't really know what it was going to be. It was just kind of a blog in the beginning, and I was talking about it to people like it was the biggest next thing. And I was just like, it's a wonderful thing. And I would just interview people on my blog. So it started as like a written thing. And then it built from there, where I was then teaching workshops, and then eventually the podcast came along. But in the very beginning, I didn't really have the understanding of how to build a podcast. So it took a couple years to figure that out and to get that going. And now it's there, and it's an incredible free resource for artists to listen to in their studio while they work. So
That's great. Thank you so much.
yeah.
I think that's it for today, unless you have something else to add, but this has been really helpful. And I think that, it is so great to hear from someone who's currently working in the world of the arts, and just hearing that you reached out and people can reach out, and it's okay, and that's what people do. But it can be intimidating.
Yeah,
For some.
absolutely. And if anyone ever wants to reach out to me, I'm always happy to, hear from you and to talk and all of the things. If you are interested in my book, again, it's Wellness for Makers, a Movement Guide for Artists. It is available on all of the, online retailers, in a lot of libraries as well, if you're looking for a free copy, or you could always ask your library to order it wherever you are. It's a wonderful thing, and I really hope to see it in so many studios across the world. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you so much for your time, and congratulations on your
Yeah,
book.
thank you, Dawn. I really appreciate being here and being a part of the SUNY New Paltz community again.
Thank you so much. Have a great day, Missy.
You too. Bye.
Bye.